Shocking promise exposed. Billionaire stunned by Maid's amazing ring. A heartwarming love REVEA. Laura's heart raced as she knelt in the attic of the Reynolds mansion, surrounded by the dust of forgotten treasures. She had come across a vintage ring, glimmering faintly through the dim light. It was exquisite, a shimmering gold band adorned with a single, radiant stone. A memory surged forward. Her grandmother's laughter echoed in her mind, reminding her of the dreams she once cherished. In her life tethered by obligation, where every penny mattered, that ring was a promise. Yet what if it was just a relic of yesterday? With each upward glance through the attic's skylight, she could see the sun pouring into the lavish home, a stark contrast to her own struggles. Time paused while she slipped the ring onto her finger. An electric surge ran through her, mingling hope with fear. It wasn't just adornment, it symbolized everything she wanted for her children. Yet, the weight of her family's financial burdens loomed heavily. How could she confront the daily grind of her job, faced with the relentless expectations of the wealthy? Shifting her gaze to the mansion's pristine surroundings, mink coats, summer parties, and blurred lines of social class, she felt a knot tighten in her chest. How would she ever cross that invisible barrier separating her humble existence from Thomas Reynolds' opulent one? With each sweep of her cloth, she dusted off not just furniture, but the weight of inequity. And as Thomas walked through the hallways, he noticed her more often. His eyes flickered with something poignant whenever he caught her in a moment of quiet reflection. But now, as life often reminded her, trials don't wait for convenient moments. Her son's recent illness had brought her to the brink. Cancellation notices from the utility company echoed in her mind, and the prospect of losing their home loomed like a dark cloud. Should she call Thomas, risk everything, and ask for his help? It clashed with her pride, the fundamentals of her upbringing. If she opened that door, would it shatter their delicate social balance? Desperation clawed at her throat. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. With the ring on her finger, Laura felt a flicker of connection, an unspoken bond forming each time their eyes met. And yet, every moment she basked in the warmth of that possibility, the fear of judgment loomed heavier. Could a man like Thomas ever understand her struggles? Leaving her kids to fend for themselves while she worked late hours in his empire felt insurmountable. Laura wrestled with her emotions, spiraling deeper into anguish. She envisioned her children, their innocent faces lit by hopes she struggled to keep alive. Was it fair to pull them into a world they would never fit in? Or should she swallow her pride and reach out? The very thought made her stomach churn. The internal war raged on as she contemplated their next encounter. Would their paths completely diverge, or could she summon the courage to fight for not just her family's stability, but something far greater? The burden grew heavier as the clouds of uncertainty closed in around her. But she held on to the promise of that ring, tighter than ever, knowing that it might be her only beacon of hope in a world that often felt like a prison. And as the shadows deepened, she stood at the precipice, ready to face the storm ahead, with everything to lose. The following morning, the mansion felt more vibrant than usual, as if it too sensed Laura's turmoil. The golden rays slanted through the tall windows, illuminating the dust dancing in the air, yet the beauty of it barely registered with her. Clutching her resolve like a lifeline, she paced her small quarters before venturing back into the heart of the Reynolds estate. With every step she took through the polished halls, Laura felt the ring on her finger grow heavier, as though it burdened her with expectations she wasn't ready to fulfill. The bright marble floors contrasted sharply with the dim unease swirling inside her, a reflection of the struggle she faced between desire and shame. As she dusted the living room, she tried to focus, but thoughts of her son kept churning in her mind. His cough echoed in her ears, each raspy sound reminding her of the late-night worries she couldn't shake. The bills piled up on the kitchen counter like a ticking clock, counting down to an uncertain future. In those moments, the grandeur around her felt painfully hollow. Thomas walked into the room, his presence stirring a mix of hope and dread. He often seemed oblivious to the chaos of Laura's life, immersed in his own world of meetings and deals, but today, she saw a different glint in his eye. Could he sense her distress? Or was she merely being paranoid? "Good morning, Laura," he greeted, his voice rich, warm, like the coffee he poured for himself. She straightened, focusing on the task at hand. There was something disarming about the way he spoke her name, igniting a flicker of courage within her. "Morning, sir," she replied, attempting to control the tremor in her voice. She barely managed a glance before she resumed her work, afraid to reveal the internal conflict brewing just beneath the surface. It felt important, monumental even, to maintain her professional demeanor. But the vulnerability eating away at her resolve was becoming unbearable. "Is everything all right? You seem a bit off," he observed, his brow creasing with genuine concern. She froze, the weight of his question bearing down on her. She could either brush it off or confront the reality of her struggles, an agonizing choice laid before her. "I'm fine, just tired," she heard herself say, the lie tasting bitter on her tongue. But even as she said it, a part of her bristled at the deception. Why was she denied the right to share her truth? In the moments that followed, as they shared mundane small talk, her internal battle raged on. Laura realized her fear of judgment was paralyzing her potential connections, not just with Thomas but with everyone around her. The weight of her pride was a heavy cloak she could no longer bear. So, when their conversation turned to planning an upcoming charity gala, their annual event to support local families in crisis, she felt a flicker of defiance ignite within her. This was not just an event, it represented hope, an avenue she could leverage to seek help. Would it be possible for the gala to support families who are struggling with medical bills? The question escaped her lips before she could second-guess herself. The moment hung in the air, charged with anticipation. His expression shifted, surprise pooling in his features. "Of course, we can discuss it with the board," he replied slowly, curiosity mixed with admiration. A surge of relief flooded through her, followed closely by an unsettling realization. By voicing a need, she had stepped closer to vulnerability. Letting Thomas in could mean bridging the emotional divide she had always feared. As she marveled at her own audacity, uncertainty crept back. What if he didn't respond the way she hoped? What if this moment became a turning point, but not in her favor? The atmosphere thickened with possibilities. Laura had just taken her first brave step, but it was evident that many more awaited her. She inhaled deeply, feeling the weight of her choices pressing against her lungs. Today had ignited something inside her, a notion that she could forge her destiny on her own terms. But the question loomed. Could she navigate the complexities of this newfound truth without losing herself to fear? The answers were still shrouded in uncertainty, yet one thing was clear: the storm was only just beginning. As Laura stood at the precipice of possibility, she prepared to face whatever might come next. The next few days were a whirlwind of activity as Laura threw herself into her work at the mansion with renewed vigor. Each surface she polished gleamed brighter, reflecting not just her labor but also the flicker of determination she felt inside her. She had dared to propose a new direction for the charity gala, a topic that continued to linger in her mind, igniting both hope and anxiety. Her conversations with Thomas had shifted ever so slightly. There was a new undercurrent to their exchanges that left her both exhilarated and unnerved. He seemed to regard her with a deeper interest, as if the walls she had built around herself were finally beginning to crack. Yet, with each interaction, Laura found herself grappling with a cocktail of emotions, elation mixed with an ever-looming dread that she was walking a precarious path. "Can we meet to discuss the gala in more detail?" Thomas asked one afternoon, his voice slicing through her thoughts as she arranged the flower displays in the dining room. The question hung in the air, heavy with potential. He was no longer just her employer, he was a partner in this daring venture. "Of course," she replied, her heart racing as she noted the crease in his brow that hinted at genuine investment. As she prepared for their meeting, a wave of self-doubt swept over her. Was she truly competent to help steer this event? The thought of causing a misstep in front of him filled her with cold fear. But there was no escaping her obligations. That evening, As they settled into a quaint sitting area filled with high ceilings and warm wooden accents, Laura took a deep breath, steeling herself for the discussion. Since we're focusing on families dealing with medical bills, we should consider reaching out to local hospitals, she began, her voice steadier than she felt. As she spoke, Thomas listened intently, his focus unwavering, and she could feel something shift in the dynamics between them. You have some strong insights, Laura, he said, nodding appreciatively. The compliment sent a thrill through her but was quickly overshadowed by the gnarled anxiety in the back of her mind. Was she veering too close to becoming someone he saw as an equal? As the meeting wore on, she proposed ideas for outreach and potential partnerships, showcasing her knowledge gained from years of navigating her son's medical needs. With every suggestion, she could hear her own voice pushing through the self-doubt, demanding acknowledgement of her own capabilities. The realization struck she held valuable experience that could indeed impact the lives of others. When the conversation culminated, and he leaned forward, eyes glinting, she felt a jolt of adrenaline. We need more than just donations, it's about creating a community, she asserted. The fire within her blazed. She was no longer just a maid but a catalyst for change. But the revelation was heavy. What if by positioning herself as a leader, she was inviting scrutiny? The risk of vulnerability at this stage was a terrifying gamble. As they wrapped up their discussions, Thomas casually mentioned, I've come to appreciate your perspective more than you know, Laura. His words were simple, yet they felt loaded, and it sent her heart into a tumult again. The weight of her aspirations collided with her insecurities. As she left the sitting area, Laura's mind churned with possibilities. She had stepped into a world where she could not only contribute but thrive. Yet it also unearthed a fear that loitered in the shadows. What lay beneath the surface of this new connection with Thomas? Turning back just before exiting, she caught his eye, feeling a tension that hinted at unspoken desires. For the first time, she allowed herself to wonder if they were both searching for more than a mere partnership in business. With each unfolding day, the stakes of her journey escalated. She had ventured into unfamiliar territory, bold yet fraught with peril. And as she prepared for what was next, one thought screamed in her mind. What would happen when their professional relationship crossed the line into personal territory? As uncertainty loomed ahead, Laura felt an undeniable shift in her life's narrative. Had she inadvertently rewritten her own story, or was she merely writing an opening chapter of a deeper conflict she wasn't ready to face? The days that followed offered little reprieve from Laura's turmoil. Each morning, she rose with a mix of anticipation and dread, knowing that every hour spent at the mansion brought her one step closer to the gala and deeper entanglement with Thomas. The echoes of their last meeting played over and over in her mind like a haunting melody, and encouragement clashing against a rising tide of anxiety. Her work, while an anchor amid the storm of emotions, became entwined with this new responsibility. She approached every task with a fierce determination, meticulously arranging centerpieces and choosing color palettes with an artist's eye. But even as she immersed herself in the details, her thoughts drifted back to the intricate dance of conversations with Thomas. Each compliment he paid her felt like both a balm and a burden, a reminder that she was no longer just a faceless worker. One afternoon, as she stood polishing silverware, Laura made a conscious decision. She would no longer shy away from this opportunity. She had earned the right to stand at the table of influence. It was time to own her narrative fully. She replayed a conversation she had overheard about someone transforming their life by embracing their fear. Could she do the same? That evening, after a particularly productive day, Laura decided to approach Thomas in the study instead of waiting for him to summon her. The air felt electric as she knocked lightly before entering. Laura, he said, looking up from a stack of papers, surprise crossing his features. Is everything all right? Yes, she said, her voice firm yet calm. I've been thinking about the gala and our vision. I want to contribute more than just ideas. I believe I can lead parts of the coordination if you're willing to let me. His brow furrowed slightly, and for a brief moment, she wondered if she had overstepped. But the moment passed, and she pressed on. I mean it, Thomas. I've done the research, and I have insights that could change the outcome. I realize how important this event is, not just for the charity but for those who depend on it. I want to put my skills to the test. The silence thickened between them, a chasm filled with unspoken expectations. Finally, he leaned back, a thoughtful expression crossing his face. "You really think you can manage that kind of responsibility?" Laura met his gaze, feeling a surge of courage bubble inside her. "I do. I've been planning for years, and I have the talent for connecting with others. This is just as much about personal experience as it is about strategy in many ways. It's my calling." A hint of admiration flickered behind Thomas's eyes, and Laura felt a warm tide of hope wash over her. But with it came an underlying fear that perhaps this boldness would only magnify their growing connection. What if her vulnerability would ultimately lead to disappointment? "I appreciate your passion, Laura," he replied, his tone more serious than before. "Let's take this step together, then. But you need to understand running this gala means navigating relationships, expectations, and scrutiny. It's not just about the event, it could change how people see you. Are you prepared for that?" The stakes had suddenly become higher, and though Laura felt a tremor of uncertainty, she pressed forward. "I am. I've already taken a leap by even suggesting this. I know who I am, Thomas, and I can give you the dedication this project deserves." As they charted the course for the gala, a shared excitement electrified the air, yet an unspoken tension lingered beneath the surface. Was she truly ready to stand beside him, potentially risking the delicate balance of their professional and personal lives? Laura's heart raced with each exchange as they began to discuss logistics. She grappled with the complexity of her feelings. Could this new partnership reshape both their futures? With every strategy laid out, she felt an invisible line being drawn between their professional ambitions and personal connections. As the evening wore on, Laura couldn't shake the sensation that something was bound to shift. The choices they were both making would not only define the gala but their relationship too. With an uneasy resolve, she finalized their plans and stepped out of the study, a new question lingering in her mind. Was she truly ready to embrace all that came with her unfolding role, including the feelings she had for Thomas? The moment felt charged, and she couldn't help but wonder, was this the beginning of a fulfilling new chapter or the precipice of an emotional cliff waiting to be leapt from? The following days spun by in an exhilarating blur, each moment laced with anticipation and a simmering dread. Laura immersed herself in her responsibilities with fervor, buoyed by the trust Thomas had shown in her abilities. Their meetings shifted from tense negotiations to strategic brainstorms. Every shared idea felt like a stepping stone towards something greater than themselves. Yet, with each passing hour, the reality of her burgeoning role settled heavily on her shoulders. The scrutiny of the mansion staff and the expectations attached to her new position weighed on her like a cloak. She was no longer just an anonymous presence in the background, she was now a player in a high-stakes game where every misstep could be dissected and judged. In her drive to prove herself, doubt crept in. Was she truly equipped to handle this newfound legacy? One afternoon, as she meticulously adjusted floral arrangements in the ballroom, she caught her reflection in the polished glass, a resolute stance mirrored by an uncertain spark in her eyes. She wondered if she could harmonize the demands of her responsibility while remaining true to herself. Later that evening, while reviewing proposed guest lists with Thomas, Laura's courage surged once more. "I think we should consider inviting some younger entrepreneurs," she suggested, her voice steady despite the tremor within. "They might shed a fresh light on opportunities and draw a crowd that aligns with our vision." Thomas's expression brightened, and for a brief moment, her worries faded. "That's an excellent idea, Laura. We need to attract people who think differently, who can drive this mission forward." His approval ignited a flurry of ideas in her mind, making her realize that she not only wanted to belong but to lead. However, the celebration of such small victories was fleeting. Every acknowledgement from Thomas carried an unspoken question: would her achievements be eclipsed by their growing connection? And if she dared to explore that connection in tandem with their professional collaboration, how would the world perceive her evolution? Determined to find clarity, she took a moment to step away from the hustle of preparations and ventured to the gardens. The cool air enveloped her, anchoring her racing thoughts. She needed to understand where the boundary lay between her personal aspirations and professional ambitions. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Laura reflected on her relationship with Thomas. Their connection went beyond professional respect. There was an electricity, unmatched by anything she had ever experienced, but that tension was laden with risks. Each smile, each brush of hands during discussions felt like a double-edged sword. Returning inside, she resolved that while the gala was a prestigious milestone, she wouldn't allow it to overshadow her personal integrity. She would carve a space for herself that honored both her ambitions and her burgeoning feelings for Thomas. The days morphed into nights, each one ushering them closer to the gala. With every plan made, the lines that divided their personal and professional lives began to blur uncomfortably. Yet, Laura found strength in her preparations, a blossoming confidence amidst her fears. But just as she began to foster a sense of belonging within this world, an unexpected visitor arrived one evening, igniting a spark of tension that hadn't been present before. She recognized the figure from her past, a shadow that threatened to unravel the progress she had worked so hard to achieve. Laura froze, her heart thundering in her chest. The decision she faced was monumental. Should she confront the past that had been chasing her, or would she retreat, allowing fear to dictate her choices yet again? Caught between two worlds, Laura knew she had to act quickly. The question now loomed larger than ever: would she bury her past and embrace her future, or would the ghosts of her history derail everything she had fought for? The figure stepped into the soft light of the mansion's foyer, and Laura's breath hitched in her throat. It was Riley, a former friend turned bitter rival whose arrival brought an unsettling wave of memories crashing over her. The laughter they shared had long since turned to silence, and now, the air around them crackled with unresolved tension. As Riley approached, confidence seeped into her posture. Laura struggled to maintain her composure. The chaotic flurry of gala preparations swirled in her mind, but here she stood, at the intersection of past affiliations and present aspirations. The weight of her ambitions seemed to double, each inch of her resolve tested by this unwelcome reminder of who she used to be. "Laura," Riley greeted, her tone laced with feigned warmth. "I didn't expect to see you here." Laura's insides twisted at the condescension, but she knew better than to show weakness. "I didn't expect you either. What brings you to the mansion?" she asked, attempting to keep her voice steady. "Business trip," Riley replied, casually shrugging as if it were no big deal. Laura noted the carefully crafted sophistication draping Riley's words, cloaking any familiarity between them. It made Laura question her own appearance and whether the sense of professionalism she had fought for would hold in donning her new role. Riley's gaze scrutinized her, as if dissecting her worth in an instant. "You look different," she mused, a thin smile creeping across her face. The implication was almost clear: Laura's transformation wasn't one to be applauded. "I've been busy," Laura replied, aware that her defensive tone was peeking through. But Riley's presence ignited something deep within her, a need to push back, to assert the growth she had earned. "I've seen. The gala is quite the undertaking," Riley noted, her eyes glimmering with a blend of envy and disbelief. "And you're at the helm, I hear." Quite a leap from she hesitated, letting the implication linger: "Your previous role." The word stung. But Laura took a breath, rallying her thoughts. She had buried the insecurities of her past. The woman who stood before Riley was not prey, she had teeth. "Yes, from there to here. It's been challenging, but I thrive under pressure," she said, hoping to inject strength into her voice. Riley's expression shifted, revealing a glimmer of annoyance. "I suppose pressure does reveal true character." Each word dripped with disdain, challenging Laura to falter. But she refused to back down. Instead, she drew from the mental notes she compiled over the weeks, the power rooted firmly in her newfound role. As they stood face to face, the history between them clashed against the ambitions that now shaped Laura's world. Every heartbeat surged with a sense of urgency. She faced not only a rival but a tantalizing mirror reflecting hurdles she had yet to overcome. Pushing her shoulders back, Laura framed her next words carefully. "Yes, it does. And I am determined to make this gala unforgettable." Her conviction drove her to hold Riley's gaze, searching for any sign of weakness. "I want to make a mark, not just for myself, but to redefine what this position can be." Riley's smirk faltered momentarily, the spark of competition alive in her eyes. The tension expanded, laden with the unspoken challenge of mutual ambition. With each passing moment, the old layers of Laura peeled away, revealing a newfound sense of purpose, urgency blending with determination. Just then, the distant sound of laughter and music floated through the mansion, pulling both women from their charged standoff. Laura felt adrenaline coursing through her veins. Now was not the time to falter. As she turned to walk away, leaving Riley to stew in the tension hanging between them, Laura realized that the shadows of her past could no longer dictate her future. She couldn't afford to retreat, not now, not ever. But the confrontation had unleashed questions she hadn't anticipated. What would it take to truly rise above her past? Would she always have to prove herself against familiar faces? With an inner resolve ignited, she prepared for the next battle before her, confident yet fearful of what challenges would await. As she moved on, the winds of fate whirled around her, carrying an unforeseen complication. Thomas approached, concern etched on his face. The flicker of anxiety in his eyes ignited a new storm within her. The moment was fragile, teetering on the brink of vulnerability. Laura faced him, aware that the time had come to discuss not only their professional goals but the unspoken emotions that intertwined their destinies. And as she opened her mouth to speak, the wisdom of her journey surged forward, ready to clarify both the past and their future. Laura took a steadying breath, the tension from her encounter with Riley still buzzing in her veins. Turning her focus to Thomas, she grappled with the internal whirlwind of doubt and determination. She could almost hear the echoes of Riley's challenges, but this was a different stage, one made up of hopes and dreams entwined with the reality of her burgeoning career. Laura, Thomas began, concern heavy in his voice, pulling her from her tumultuous thoughts. His intense gaze locked onto hers, searching for some hidden truth. Are you all right? You seemed off with Riley. I'm fine, she replied too quickly, a note of defensiveness creeping in. Yet, as she studied his face, curiosity flickered alongside her trepidation. I just didn't expect to encounter her. It caught me off guard. He nodded thoughtfully but didn't press further on her emotional landscape. Instead, shifting toward their professional paths, he ventured, I believe in your vision for this gala. It could redefine our brand in a way we haven't yet explored. His words wove themselves around her unresolved anxieties, granting a sliver of solace. But beneath that comfort lay the suspicion that she might not be the only one facing pressure. Thomas, what about you? How are you handling everything with the board? I can sense tension in our meetings. A pained expression crossed his features, hinting at unearthly burdens he bore. There's a lot riding on this event, expectations are high. The board is eager to see returns, and they don't care much for the details. She noted the subtle shift in his stance, the weight of responsibility amplifying his charisma. It struck her then that in their shared pursuit, they were both poised on precarious ledges, teetering between success and defeat. Then we have to show them the brilliance of our work, Laura asserted, a new sense of leadership burgeoning within her. Together, we can push through their doubts. This declaration ignited something between them, an unspoken pact to navigate the imminent chaos side by side. But that means I need to be transparent, she added, becoming acutely aware of the complexities that had hung in the background of their collaboration. There's something about Riley's presence that stirred things up, and I want you to know it. A brief flash of surprise flickered across Thomas's features, quickly replaced by understanding. Do you need to confront her again? Laura considered the question, embracing it fully. No. I need to outshine her. My success has to speak, not just for me, but for us. If I let her dictate my journey, I'm giving her the reins. In the clarity of her realization, she felt like a wildfire, consuming any lingering doubts and insecurities. The confrontation had sharpened her resolve, transforming resentment into a steely determination to excel. Good, Thomas replied, a fierce glint of support radiating in his eyes. Focus on what you want to achieve, let Riley be the fuel to your fire, not the chains that bind you. Their words flowed seamlessly, ideas about expectations exchanged for solutions, moments of vulnerability stirring a collective motivation that pulsed strongly between them. As they delved deeper into strategies for the gala, Laura began to feel a shift in her essence, a transformation mirrored in Thomas's demeanor as he leaned in closer, sharing his vision of the event. Yet, as he spoke, something nagged at the edge of her consciousness, an unsettling reminder lingering in the back of her mind. Could the proximity to her past, specifically Riley, unearth buried emotions that she hadn't begun to confront? Or was she finally carving out the space to grow, leaving outdated insecurities behind? Laura. A voice called out, pulling her back to the immediate worries of the gala preparations. She turned slightly to find one of the organizers racing toward them, excitement mingled with urgency. "Did you see the latest seating chart?" They continued, but her mind remained fully immersed in her newfound resolve, eager to embrace both the personal and professional hurdles ahead. This moment felt pivotal. A crossroad where understanding of her capabilities intertwined harmoniously with blossoming workplace dynamics. As they hashed out plans, Thomas stood beside her, igniting an awareness that with every stride forward, the lingering shadows would recede further behind her. Yet, the looming presence of Riley reminded her that not every challenge was behind her. New uncertainties lingered, the mantle of authority heavy with responsibility and expectations. How would she sustain her momentum and personal growth if she continued to brush shoulders with the ghosts of her past? As they finished their discussion, determination sparking in her chest, Laura felt a brief twist of apprehension. An inevitable confrontation awaited her, a choice between her ambitions and the strings of the past that still sought to ensnare her. Would she unravel or solidify her resolve once again? Suddenly, she held her breath, a fleeting thought crashing into her consciousness. The moment was ripe with potential, but how effectively would she harness it? And as she spun around to address the approaching organizer, a new voice tugged at her heartstrings. It was Riley. The time had come to assert her worth once more. Laura felt the air grow thick with anticipation as Riley approached. Her heart raced, the confidence she cultivated just moments before teetering on a precipice of uncertainty. Riley exuded an easy charm, as if she ruled every room she entered. The faintest hint of a smirk graced her lips, and Laura recognized the challenge hanging in the air. "Laura," Riley began, her voice silky smooth, "did you really think you could pull this off without me?" Those words were like a strike to Laura's core, igniting her internal fire but also stirring concerns about her newfound resolve. This was the confrontation she had been contemplating but hadn't anticipated so soon. "Actually, I believe this time I'll be leading the way," Laura replied, her voice steadier than she felt inside. She locked eyes with Riley, refusing to back down. "Our vision for the gala doesn't require anyone else's input." Each phrase dripped with determination, but the back of her mind echoed with doubts about her readiness to combat Riley head-on. Riley raised an eyebrow, an amused glint flashing across her features. "Oh, darling, you're so naive if you think this is just about vision. The board wants results, and they're not interested in great ideas, they want names, notoriety." "Then I'll give them that notoriety," Laura asserted, feeling a mixture of anger and inspiration coursing through her veins. "And I'll do it on my own terms." "Bold words," Riley replied with that infuriating smile. "But remember, I'm not going anywhere. You might want to choose your battles wisely." Laura could sense the tension in the atmosphere shift as Riley's confidence fed off the fear she sought to instill. The stakes were high, and Riley was right, the board wanted results. They craved the glamour she brought. Yet, was that glitter enough to overshadow Laura's evolving strength? "I don't need to battle for attention, Riley," Laura said, feeling a newfound spark from deep within. "I only need focus and a clear mind. If you think I'll rely on your past achievements to bolster my own, then you underestimate me completely." With every word, Laura felt herself stepping further into her own authenticity, shedding the fear of being overshadowed. She was ready to claim her space, to elevate herself above the distractions of the past. "Interesting choice of strategy," Riley replied, her smile faltering for just a moment. "But you might find the higher you climb, the harder the fall. That's a risk I'm willing to take." Laura responded, resolute in the face of adversity. For the first time, it wasn't just about internal strength, it was about ownership of her career, her ambitions, and her potential. The nerves that had once paralyzed her began to transform into galvanizing energy. Meanwhile, Thomas stood nearby, an unreadable expression on his face. Laura could sense his contemplation. He was witnessing a side of her that had been long suppressed. Would he see her as she reshaped into someone stronger? As the exchange simmered, she recognized that this confrontation was only the starting point. With each passing moment, she began to realize just how deep the roots of her past ran. Riley had become a reflection of the insecurities she had fought against for far too long. But this was not just a transient battle. It was about becoming a version of herself that could withstand not only Riley's smirk but any force that dared to diminish her aspirations. "Let us see how this unfolds," Laura finally said, her heart pounding not with fear but with invigorating resolve. "You may have the board's ear, but I'm the one crafting the future." As she turned away from Riley, adrenaline coursing through her veins, a sense of clarity enveloped her. This was about more than confronting a rival. It was about embracing the essence of who she was becoming in the face of every challenge. Yet, as she exchanged glances with Thomas and witnessed pride sparking in his eyes, a lingering question haunted her. Would her confrontations with Riley lead her toward the height of self-assertion she craved or merely deepen conflicts she had yet to comprehend? The answer shimmered in the air around her, and as the noise of preparations swirled, Laura sensed that the real test was yet to come. How would she channel this newfound strength in the reality of everyday expectations? The moment was ripe for a breakthrough, and just as she started to take the next step, her phone buzzed with a message, a cryptic reminder from the past, tipping the balance into unpredictable territories once again. Would she allow it to derail her ascent or transform her into the leader she was meant to be? Laura's fingers hovered above her phone, the sudden buzz pulling her from the exhilarating confrontation with Riley. She clicked to open the message, her heart pounding with a mix of excitement and trepidation. It was from her former mentor, Sylvia, a name that conjured both reverence and unease. Their fallout had left deep scars, and the thought of revisiting that chapter of her life felt both alluring and dangerous. "Laura, I hope you're well. I'd like to discuss an opportunity that's come up. It requires talent and vision, qualities I know you possess. Let us meet." The words pulsed with potential, igniting something dormant within her. This was the kind of invitation that could redefine her trajectory, yet the shadow of her past with Sylvia threatened to taint the promise. Would this meeting derail her focus on the gala? Or was it a chance to prove her burgeoning self-worth? "Laura?" Thomas's voice broke through her ruminations, drawing her gaze. He looked at her with curiosity and concern, as if he sensed the inner conflict brewing beneath her calm exterior. "You okay? You seem to be in another world." "Just a message from Sylvia," she replied, forcing a bright smile that didn't quite meet her eyes. The last thing she wanted was to weigh him down with her turbulent thoughts. "It's about some potential collaboration." "Sounds intriguing," he said, his expression turning thoughtful, "but have you considered the implications? Working with someone who once doubted you." His words lingered in the air, a subtle warning wrapped in genuine care. Laura realized he was right. Sylvia had been a pivotal figure in her early career, someone she had looked up to and then fallen away from. The thought of stepping back into that dynamic was fraught with complications. But something inside her sparked at the opportunity. It was time to embrace her growth, errors and all. "I think I need to face it," Laura admitted, her voice steadier now. "It's tempting to ignore the past, but it's also a crucial part of my journey." "Just don't compromise your vision or forget who you are, Laura," Thomas cautioned, a mixture of encouragement and protectiveness woven into his words. "You've come too far to let anything drag you back." His confidence in her bolstered her resolve. Meeting with Sylvia would not just be about the opportunity she might present, it would also be a test of Laura's strength and conviction. Could she stand firm in her newfound identity while engaging with someone who once challenged it? That night, Laura lay awake, thoughts swirling around what tomorrow might hold. The gala loomed over her, and the stakes felt higher than ever. Though she relished the newfound assertiveness that pulsed through her veins after her exchange with Riley, the approach of meeting Sylvia stirred doubts. Would she return as the empowered leader she envisioned or fall prey to the insecurities that had previously defined her? The dawn broke with a sense of urgency. After a quick shower, she stared at her reflection, searching for answers in her own eyes. Today would determine not just her direction in this critical phase of her career, but also whether she could truly harness her strength in the face of her past. Laura took a deep breath, whispered affirmations to herself, and set her intention. She would enter the meeting ready to confront her fears head-on, not just to rehash old wounds but to forge a new path that included her voice loud, clear, and undeniably her own. With her heart racing, she sent a reply to Sylvia, affirming a time and place to meet. As she hit send, a surge of adrenaline coursed through her. This was her moment, a stitch in the fabric of her evolving narrative. Yet, as her gaze shifted to the mirror, the reflection revealed not just determination but a flicker of doubt that nagged at her. The question continued to loom: would she emerge triumphant, or would the meeting fracture the newfound identity she had fought so hard to construct? The clock ticked on, and with every passing second, her resolve solidified. As she grabbed her bag and headed out the door, she couldn't shake the feeling that the pivotal encounter awaited her, a moment that could either become the keystone of her journey or drop her into unforeseen chaos. Laura took a steadying breath as she prepared to meet Sylvia, the air in the cafe heavy with the weight of the past and the possibilities of the future. Today was not just another meeting, it was her chance to reclaim her narrative. A blend of nostalgia and anxiety coursed through her, but she steeled herself, remembering the newfound strength she had unearthed in recent weeks. As she entered the cafe, the familiar ambience elicited a rush of memories. Sylvia was already seated, a figure who once embodied authority in Laura's life. The way Sylvia presented herself, a polished exterior concealing a sharp wit, was as intimidating as ever. Yet, Laura reminded herself of how far she had come, now equipped with confidence fueled by her work at the mansion and her determination to rise above the shadows of her past. "Laura," Sylvia said, a hint of surprise in her voice as she looked up from her notes. "I hardly recognized you." "Thanks," Laura replied, taking a seat, her heart racing. "I've changed a lot since we last spoke." "Clearly," Sylvia replied, a slight edge in her tone. "I hear you've taken on quite a responsibility with the gala. It's a big step for someone who used to shy away from the spotlight." Laura felt a flicker of irritation at the implication but decided to redirect the conversation as she focused on the opportunity before her. "I'm excited about the gala," she said, her tone firm. "I believe it really can impact our community." Sylvia's eyes narrowed slightly, as if evaluating Laura's sincerity. "That's optimistic. However, you do understand how high the stakes are, don't you? It's not just about good intentions, it's about results. Name recognition, something I can help you achieve." Laura's resolve faltered for a moment. The temptation to lean on Sylvia's established connections loomed large. However, stubbornness bubbled within her. She had worked hard to carve her own path, to elevate herself beyond dependence and insecurity. "I appreciate your offer, but I'm focused on leading this project in the way I believe is best, which might not require your network." A pause engulfed the table. Sylvia's gaze hardened, the warmth dissipating as the silence stretched. "Is that so? Have you thought about how quickly things can fall apart? The board might not have the patience to see your vision through." "Maybe," Laura admitted, feeling her heart race, "but I believe in taking risks. I've seen how crucial this gala can be for families facing hardships. I want to create a real change, and I'm ready to put my skills to the test." Internal tension rippled between them. Sylvia's reaction was nuanced, a mixture of respect and bemusement pushing against the very foundation of their past dynamic. Although Laura felt the weight of apprehension, the force of her determination grew stronger. She was no longer the quiet assistant hiding behind the shadows. She was a leader, confronting her challenges head-on. "Interesting stance," Sylvia finally offered, her voice tinged with unexpected admiration. "But be cautious. When you step into the spotlight, it shines harshly. Not everyone waits to lend you a hand." "I see that now," Laura responded, her voice growing steadier, "but I've learned to seek support where it truly matters and to trust myself to navigate adversity. I won't allow walls built by others to restrict my potential any longer." As their conversation continued, Laura recognized the once familiar trepidation in Sylvia's gaze. The seasoned mentor was now caught in the middle of a generational shift, a wave of boldness and authenticity threatening the status quo. This moment was not merely about sustaining Laura's newfound courage, it represented a chance to redefine the existing power dynamics between them. Emerging from the meeting, Laura felt an invigorating rush of satisfaction. She had faced her past head-on, articulating her boundaries and reclaiming her worth. With renewed confidence, she prepared to return to the mansion, ready to manifest her vision for the gala and solidify her place within it. As she walked, visions of the future danced in her mind. Each step echoed with clarity. She was no longer bound by anyone else's expectations, not even her own. Laura was an architect of her destiny, and she would build every brick of it on her terms, self-assured in her abilities and intent on leaving her mark. Later that evening, Laura stood in the grand ballroom, surrounded by the early stages of decoration for the gala. The pristine marble floors and high ceilings offered a promise of transformation, reflecting the evolution she herself had undergone. Each flower arrangement she adjusted now represented not only her dedication but also her identity, authentic and unwavering. A familiar voice broke through her reverie. "I think this will be a stunning event," Thomas said, his presence grounding her. The appreciation in his gaze stirred something within her, a reminder that she was not just capable, but recognized for her competence. "Absolutely," Laura replied, the conviction filling her as she met his gaze. "We're going to make a significant impact." As their discussions unfolded, Laura felt the camaraderie intensifying. The bond between them was evolving, steeped in mutual respect and shared ambition. It was no longer just about the business, it was about growth, trust, and partnership. Moments later, as they finalized details together, Laura realized that she stood on solid ground. She had taken the reins of her journey, harnessed her fears, and emerged from uncertainty into clarity. The stakes were still high, but her confidence grew with each challenge. In the days leading to the gala, plans solidified under Laura's leadership. With each successful task completed, her sense of accomplishment multiplied. It was no longer an isolated role. She cultivated a network of team members who respected her insights and thrived under her vision. The day of the gala arrived, the venue transformed into a tapestry of elegance, symbolizing hope for so many families. As Laura stood in front of a gathering crowd, her heart surged with pride. The familiar sense of trepidation she once felt in challenging scenarios had faded, replaced by solid belief in her capabilities. With Thomas at her side, she faced the audience, ready to speak about the mission that mattered most, a vision she could claim as her own. As she spoke, each word resonated with clarity, empowered by the growth she had achieved. Laura was no longer a maid ensnared by the weight of expectation. She stood proudly as a woman on the cusp of her destiny. In that moment, she knew she had not only conquered her obstacles but had transformed into a leader fully capable of illuminating the path for others. This gala marked the culmination of her journey, a testament to her courage and tenacity. It was a celebration of not only her achievements but proof that true growth comes when we overcome the very challenges that once held us back. With clarity and purpose coursing through her, Laura smiled at Thomas, their shared vision reaching new heights as the audience erupted in applause. She felt invincible, embraced by recognition she had achieved what many deemed impossible. The promise of the ring she had found in the attic now stood fulfilled, symbolizing hope, courage, and the triumphant change she had managed to incite. As she walked off the stage, enveloped in the cheers that echoed through the ballroom, Laura knew that this was just the beginning. The true achievement lay not merely in the event's success but in the realization that she could inspire change, reignite hope, and shape her destiny. This journey was hers, and she had forged it through grit, determination, and unwavering belief in herself. Now was the moment to celebrate, to share this story with others. Laura had ascended not just to newfound heights, but to a realm where the possibilities were endless. And with that, she vowed to continue striving forward, forever fueled by the promise of hope that only she could bring forth. You need to subscribe now to witness more incredible transformations. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and support stories like this. Comment your reactions and theories about Laura's journey. What did her transformation mean to you? Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this inspiring conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to share.